I was born in 1926 in Washington, D.C. I lived there for 13 years until 1939. Yes, two sisters, Margie and Diane. They were younger than I. Georgetown University, I went back to Washington after the service. When I went in the service, the war had been going on for about 3 years, and they were drafting everybody when they were 18, so I knew that I'd probably go in the Army and I'd rather go in the Navy, so I enlisted in the Navy. I was eventually a pharmacist mate 3rd class, which is what they call a petty officer, and it's basically the medical corps for the Navy. All we had was radio, but it was sort of the centerpiece of entertainment for the family. They did have movies, but I don't ever remember going to a movie as a child. I don't think children went to the movies very much then. I don't know, but money was an object. We listened almost every night to the radio. I listened to shows like Tom Mix. These were serials. They'd be on like, some of them would be on every night, most of them would be on once a week. Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy, The Shadow Knows. Back in those days, you could get prizes by writing into the station. You'd get, like, if you were watching some mystery show, they'd send you a magic ring or something that you could put on your finger and pretend you were a magician, stuff like that. I remember Wheaties as a young man that they sponsored radio shows, and I always asked for Wheaties if I could get it. They were big, maybe 4 or 5 feet high, maybe 2 feet wide. Now I don't know why they were so big. They were sort of like a piece of furniture. They tried to make the cabinet nice looking. Then eventually they got to be smaller and smaller with table models and stuff like that. But at that time, I remember our radio was pretty big, and we only had the one. I remember that very distinctly. I was 15, and I was listening to the New York Giants play a football game. They interrupted the game to say that the Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor. In retrospect, I'm not sure what impact it made on me at 15, because I don't think I would have remembered exactly where Pearl Harbor was. I knew about it. I didn't hear it. I'm sure my parents either heard it or read about it the next day. Yeah. I never heard that at the time. I never heard that was, racist. I never heard that. No. The comedy was very good. Now there was in some of the movies there was more of it because they painted the black actors sometimes as foolish people, just all they could do was dance, and that was wrong. I think it's different when you're listening to the radio than if you're watching a movie, because you kind of disassociate from what a person looks like, and you only hear what they're saying, So I think that was the difference. Yeah. In 1939 at the New York World's Fair, I was there. It was marvelous. It was a real small set, and the way they did it, they would have people would walk into a certain area and they show it on a screen. And this was something nobody had ever seen before. They called it the World of Tomorrow. So it was quite a marvel, and but television was the big hit. Had it not been for the war, I'm sure television would have been more into people's homes quicker than it got in there. I think 51, which is kind of surprising because the war had been over 5 years. For some reason or other, they were either trying to perfect the picture or something, but they didn't really start broadcasting. I'm sure there were television sets that they were working on, but as far as commercial broadcasting, they really didn't start until 1950, and then only in certain parts of the East Coast. There was hardly any of it in the Midwest or the West Coast. What would happen is when they first came out, they would be bought by bars. I joined the American Legion after the war, and they had a television set, but it was very expensive, and it was small, maybe 10 inches or something, in black and white. But they were expensive then. That's why I think most people didn't get them right away. I didn't get one probably till 54. When it started out, there was only like NBC, ABC, and CBS. That was all there was. I think NBC only, and then ABC and CBS. And they weren't on all the time, just certain hours of the day. And the big show when they first started television was Milton Berle, the Texaco Theater. Everybody watched that. I think it was on Sunday night or something like that. But then, you know, eventually other shows came on, news programs. Edward R. Murrow, the soap operas started. Yes, I watched a lot of that. Welch made the famous comment about, have you no shame? Remember that? I kind of had mixed feelings about it. I was very much anti-communist, but on the other hand, I recognized that McCarthy had gone way overboard. McCarthy's lawyer, I didn't like him at all, Roy Cohn, because he was really, he could be very underhanded and nasty. So I didn't like him at all, but I recognized that McCarthy had gone overboard in his, you know, waving his papers about, I have a list here of 51 known communists, you know, all that stuff. So it was kind of, you were kind of torn a little bit, you know, because at that time, Russia and communism were, that was our main problem. Playhouse 90 was one of my favorites. That was an hour and a half show every week, and it was very well done. We didn't get color until probably near 1980. Yeah, it was. Now the first color wasn't very good. It's kind of grainy and colors would kind of, you know, mix around and stuff. Television, for me, got more important because it was informative. It was entertaining as well, but I used it much more for informative kind of things. The JFK that's the worst thing that's ever happened in my life. I had worked in his campaign for his election, and I admired him greatly, so it struck me personally. But yes, I watched, the whole country watched that for 3 days. That's all they had. They had reruns and reruns and reruns, and they showed the actual footage of when Ruby shot Oswald. So they kept showing that. I think the whole nation was glued to the TV. It was so unbelievable. And I was watching a program, and they broke in and said an airplane has hit one of the Twin Towers. Everybody thought it was just a terrible accident. It became apparent after a while that that second plane was aiming right for the second tower. And then the horror of those buildings collapsing and the pictures of the people running in the streets, it was just, I mean, it was unbelievable, a terrible thing. The problem is, I think, that it's very difficult to put any limit on freedom of expression. And it's an unfortunate situation because people abuse it, but nevertheless, I think, on balance, except for violence sake, if it's done as an actual occurrence or in a drama show or something, I really don't think it should be regulated or censored. Yes, it was marvelous. It was so unbelievable. Something nobody had ever seen before. Quite a marvel. It was sort of the centerpiece of entertainment. The big show about that I don't know. I'd rather read a book. So.
Racehorse owner Tom O'Keefe is suing Tom Crowley for refusing to pay for a racehorse. Mr. O'Keefe says Mr. Crowley bought the horse as is, but then a few days later claimed the horse was lame and stopped payment on his check. Mr. O'Keefe says it was Mr. Crowley's own fault that he didn't have a vet check her before he bought her. Tom is suing for $3,230 and is here with his trainer, Mike Natale.
Tell me about that conversation.
No way did that happen.
Did. No.
No, I said.
By the way, has anybody told you look like Bob Barker? Well, I hope he doesn't, but I don't know why it took till now to hit me, but
Not
I just
yet.
realized it. Okay, so